iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz.
I keep saying it feels like I've won the lottery. You know, partly it's because there are two projects that I love, and I feel like, I mean, not for the first time, but I feel like I've done them both. They're work that I'm really proud of. And so having done this for so long, I know how rare that is, and it really feels kind of like some cloud opened up. I will say on our opening night and also in our first preview, we walked off stage, held hands, and wept. Like there was like something about just the journey and the fact that we were all making our Broadway debuts. And I have to say, the writer of this play is my soulmate. I love her so much. And the fact that we kind of got on this ride together. She also came backstage and was like, cry. She's like, I'm so proud, you know, that she just, I think she felt like the play was received in the way she wanted, and we felt like we kind of held our nerve, and that we're making our Broadway debut, but it's also in a play that is not typically what you see on Broadway, which feels like a real win. You know, the thing that I've cared most about is doing good work. And the thing that I've always been so interested in is just human behavior and how people reveal themselves in like these small kind of Chekhovian ways. And I feel like she is interested in the same thing. So she's writing, you know, like I always thought it would come in the shape of some, I don't know, John Cassavetes who would come and like I would be as Jenna. And I never dreamed that it would be in someone who shares so much of my insides. And I'm very, very flattered that she calls me her muse, but I also feel like she has made me so much better as an artist because she's like complicated and nuanced and interesting, and she writes funny characters who are romantic and like edgy, and I feel it's kind of bottomless in the way that Chekhov is bottomless. Like I think I could work on her writing for the rest of my life and be really, I would never arrive, you know. Well, she wrote the play as, she says, like a scream into the void in response to Trump's first Muslim ban. Even though I think in the play it's much less on the nose, and like the politics are internal and interior. And then when we did the play, it was Biden. And when this play opened, it was 3 days after he's come back into office. So there's like something undeniably just like in our psyches. But also, I think, just like any artist, the passage of time with a good work of art, it deepens it. And because it was our whole cast and our director, I think we started out this time around with a lot more trust of both the play and each other. So I think we just dove in and went a lot deeper. And also, you know, in that time span, the women life freedom movement happened in Iran, and you know 4 of the women in the cast are Iranian. So I think there's things that just in our hearts like have expanded, and we carry more. And I think that comes out in like subconscious ways as well as conscious ways. I haven't been back there in a long time, but you know, it's like in my DNA. When every time I go home, my mom, you know, the music, the food we eat, the things we celebrate, I feel like it's still inside me. But also, like I grew up seeing the way that, you know, for example, when we came here, my mom's a psychiatric nurse, and she went and she has a story about how she, like one day in the cafeteria, her fellow nurses are like, "Oh, you eat with a knife and fork?" Like there's just like an assumption that someone who has an accent is so different from them, especially from that part of the world. So I grew up seeing a lot of people who, like I had access to their interior life, like who were just like just full-fledged human beings get kind of made smaller in the outside world. And I think that there is something of that is explored in identity and accents and language in this play that I think I had front row seat for. And so I think I carry them sort of all with me all the time in the way that, you know, you carry your memories of your parents or people you've loved or people who've had an impact on you. And we've had so many people who come to the show who even aren't Iranians, but they're like, "Oh, I grew up in China and I always felt this way, and I can't believe that I'm sort of being represented on this Broadway stage," which is really moving. I have so many. I was telling Sana, I was like, there's something that I sort of found this character through questions more than answers, and I think she is more elusive, and I think she lives in a sort of fantasy of possibility. And so I both love that I get to be romantic and sort of explore that part of me, and the fact that sometimes she's really sharp, and I have to say there's like a couple of jokes that every night just like the whole audience erupts, and it's really satisfying. It's really satisfying to be like, oh, I'm received. When I first did this play, I did 4 plays in a row, and like I had to miss my son's 10th birthday. We had the Lortel Awards and I had a show. But I have to say, something about the experience of having him, I think, expanded my possibility of feeling. I was already a sensitive person, but just like understanding myself as a person of value who was needed and has like this ultimate connection, somehow, I don't know, I think I just grew so much as a human being, and I think so much of acting and the study of the arts is a study in humanity and like how to understand different connections. And so, I think I would audition for mothers before, and obviously I had a mom and I would get that, but I get it. I just think that I'm a more expanded person from having had him. And he came to this opening night, and, like my husband was born and raised in London, but he's also of Iranian descent. So he's grown up understanding this other culture. And my husband said, like, at the end of the play, he started weeping. Like, he just was, I'm going to cry when I talk about it. But, like, he said, my husband was like, I was moved at the end of the play, but seeing our son respond to his mom, also, not just being on Broadway, but just being received and, like, being in a community that had non-Iranians and Iranians, and seeing that reflected and how it got to him, it just was like a real moment of like, I feel like there was like a forgiveness for leaving him because he understood what it was, and it's just really moving to me. I say to him all the time, and especially like living in New York and living in a place where it's like so expensive and everyone's like money. I'm like, find what you love and put it in the world. It's your only safeguard to like being a person. So I would be like, it's gonna be a hard life. Sorry, kid, but I would support him. He could do whatever he wants. I think I've been spoiled in that I've gotten to carry these like amazing shows, and I feel like even on The Night Agent, I really got to have just like a part that had depth and complications. So my wish is just to continue getting like 3-dimensional interesting characters. There's like a couple people who have approached me, and there's like projects that are in early sort of stages, and development of films I feel like takes a long time, but more than anything, the thing that I really gravitate towards is working with people who are at the top of their game and, challenge me. So I'm looking for a challenge. I love theater, and I was telling my friend right before we came here, it's like in the last 3 months I've sort of been in a bubble. Like I missed Eureka Day. Liberation is opening at the Roundabout. I really want to see that. And I have to I think there's something I don't even remember the name, at New York Theater Workshop going on right now. I love a lot of off-Broadway as well as Broadway theater. So I think I have to get re-immersed into what is going. I think I've been in a bubble, and I have to kind of come out and see the light of day and see what's out there. I have told the story that a friend of mine came to see English, and she said she was sitting next to a man who had brought his son from Ohio and was like walking around Times Square and was like, we should see something. And he just saw this, billboard called English, and he came. And she said, sitting next to him, by the end of the play, it was like someone had unzipped him. And he was like, he was South Asian. He was like, we always come to see like, a musical or some culture. He's like, I never thought that I would have come here and seen part of my story reflected on stage. And he turned to his son, he's like, we should tell your mom, we should see less musicals and more straight plays, which I thought was a real win.
iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz.